The cargo ship Blue Star was never built for adventure. It was small, patched in too many places, and always smelled faintly of burnt coffee. The crew had one simple mission: deliver frozen food crates to a mining station on the far side of human space. No one on board expected anything more exciting than fixing the coffee machine again. But when their navigation computer glitched during a routine jump, they did not end up anywhere near the mining station. The stars around them looked wrong. Not a little wrong, completely wrong. Space was filled with massive ships, far bigger than anything humans had ever built. Some were shaped like long spines, others like glowing pyramids, and they all fired strange weapons that twisted light. Hull beams curved like snakes in space, smashing into each other's shields. It was a battle, a war happening right in front of them, inside the cockpit. Captain Sarah leaned back in her chair, chewing on a piece of gum. Well, she said slowly, either we're very lost, or Earth has been keeping some very big secrets. Sighed. The pilot, Mason, adjusted his cap and squinted at the scanners. These ships aren't human. Not even close. They're engines. I can't even read half the signals. In the back, two engineers, Raj and Alina, argued over whether they should fix the coolant leak or finish making sandwiches first. The ship's AI, a sarcastic program named Kip, spoke through the speakers. Attention, humans. We are in an active combat zone. Probability of survival: low. Probability of coffee machines surviving: even lower. Nobody screamed. Nobody panicked. The crew just stared at the display as if they'd stumbled into a new kind of entertainment channel. 10 credits says the big gold one wins, Raj said, pointing at a warship the size of a small city. They didn't know it yet, but every alien ship in the area had already detected them. Sensors locked onto the tiny human freighter. To these alien commanders, the sudden arrival of an unknown ship in their most protected space was either a bold infiltration or a technological miracle. Some suspected the humans were spies. Others thought they might be a secret super weapon. None could understand why the strange vessel was just sitting there, broadcasting no distress signal, no surrender, no fear. One alien captain, a scaled creature with 6 eyes, snarled in his native language. They do not run. They do not bow. This is dangerous. Another aboard the golden warship tilted her head and ordered, "Bring them to me." A bright light flared near the Blue Star. Mason flinched, but Sarah didn't move. A colossal vessel, shaped like a spear and glowing, with blue energy, drifted toward them. Its shadow swallowed their tiny ship completely. "Docking request," Kip announced. Although request is probably the wrong word, more like command, Sarah sighed. Of course. Tuesday morning and we're already making new friends? Docking was not gentle. Mechanical arms clamped around the Blue Star, pulling it inside the alien warship. The humans felt the shudder through the hole. The engineers finally paused their sandwich making, exchanging looks that said this could get interesting. The airlock opened with a hiss, revealing a corridor of metal and strange light. The walls pulsed faintly, as if the ship itself was alive. 5 towering alien soldiers stood there, armor like liquid metal flowing over their bodies. They held weapons shaped like curved blades that hummed dangerously. One of them stepped forward, its voice a deep, echoing rumble. The language was unknown, a mix of clicks and tones. The crew stared at him for a moment, then Sarah smiled politely. "Sorry, we don't speak. Whatever that is. Got anything in English?" The alien blinked. Then a translator device hanging from its neck activated, speaking in a flat, mechanical voice. "You will follow. Do not resist." Raj leaned toward Mason and whispered, "Do you think they're going to take us to their leader? Because that would be so cliché." They were marched through winding corridors filled with other aliens. Some tall and elegant, others short and armored like beetles. Every pair of eyes followed the humans with a mix of suspicion and fascination. Whispered alien words followed. Them too. Most species in this galaxy had learned to fear the unknown. But these new arrivals, they just looked bored. Finally, they reached a grand chamber, its ceiling so high it vanished into darkness. At the far end, on a raised platform, sat the alien admiral. Her skin shimmered like molten gold, her eyes glowing with inner fire. She studied the humans with a sharp, almost predatory gaze. "You came through our defense perimeter during war," her translator said. "Explain." Sarah tilted her head. "We didn't mean to. Our jump went wrong. We were headed to a mining station." She said it as casually as if she were explaining a wrong turn on the road. The Admiral narrowed her eyes. "And you are not afraid?" Sarah shrugged. "Should we be?" The room went quiet. Every alien in the chamber seemed to hold their breath, somewhere behind the humans. One of the soldiers muttered something that sounded like disbelief. Mason pulled out his datapad and looked at a star map. "While we're here, could you point out where exactly here is? Our computer's a little confused." The Admiral studied them a moment longer, then laughed a strange, melodic sound that made the walls vibrate. "Interesting," she said. "Perhaps the galaxy will remember this meeting." The humans still had no idea they had just walked into the heart of the Galactic Empire. And the Empire had no idea it had just invited in a species that treated danger like an afternoon coffee break. The war outside continued to rage, but in the minds of several alien leaders, a new question had formed: what exactly were these humans, and how dangerous could they become? The answer, as the galaxy was about to learn, was far more dangerous than anyone expected. The blue star floated inside the golden warship's docking bay like a toy boat in a vast ocean. The humans had been told to wait. Alien guards in silver-black armor stood around them, silent and unmoving, weapons glowing faintly. The air smelled faintly metallic, and the walls around them pulsed with strange energy. Captain Sarah sat on a crate, legs crossed, sipping from a battered travel mug. Mason leaned against the hull of their ship, arms folded, studying the alien soldiers as if deciding whether their armor was bulletproof. Raj and Alina had already unpacked a portable chessboard, playing quietly while Kip, the ship's AI, complained through a portable speaker about the temperature. "This place is too cold for humans," Kip said. "I'm logging a formal complaint." "No one's listening to you," Sarah replied without looking up. After an hour, a new group of aliens entered. They were taller than the guards, their armor lined with gold. The leader, a figure with a long flowing cloak and a face hidden by a smooth mask, spoke in the same strange clicking language. The translator hanging at his chest hummed and then spoke. "You will accompany us to the Imperial capital. The Admiral wishes it." Mason frowned. "Do we get a choice in this?" The alien tilted his head, clearly not understanding sarcasm. "Yes," the translator said. "You may choose to walk or be carried." Sarah stood. "Walking it is." They were led out of the docking bay and deeper into the golden warship. The corridors curved in impossible ways, some floors transparent so they could see vast machinery humming far below. Occasionally they passed windows that showed the battle still raging outside. Energy beams arced between massive warships, explosions flaring silently in the void. The aliens walked quickly, but the humans didn't seem rushed. Raj kept stopping to take pictures with a small handheld camera. Lena ran her fingers along the strange walls, feeling the faint hum under the metal. Finally, they entered a chamber lined with glowing panels. In the center stood a raised platform surrounded by a shimmering energy field. "Transport chamber," the masked alien explained. "It will take us directly to the Imperial throne world." The humans exchanged glances. Mason whispered, "So, a teleporter." Sarah nodded slowly. "Guess we'll find out." The field flared to life, surrounding them in bright golden light. For a moment the world dissolved into streaks of color, and then it reformed. Different stars, different skies. They stood now inside a structure, so massive it took their breath away, even if they didn't admit it out loud. The walls of the arrival hall were made of black stone, shot through with rivers of glowing silver. Huge alien statues loomed above them, each one depicting a different species. The floor was a polished mirror, reflecting the towering guards that waited there. Through the massive windows beyond, they saw the Imperial capital, a planet-sized city. Towers stretched into the clouds, connected by glowing bridges. Giant orbital rings encircled the world, and strange craft zipped between them like fireflies. Raj let out a low whistle. This is not the mining station. They were escorted through grand streets filled with alien life. Creatures of all shapes and sizes moved around them, some on foot, others gliding above the ground, a few riding strange floating beasts. The air buzzed with sounds and smells unlike anything the humans had experienced, yet they walked as if they'd been here 100 times before. Mason pointed at a food stall where something sizzling on a grill gave off a smell like spiced bread. Think they'd take Earth credits? The guards didn't answer. Eventually, we were brought to a colossal building that seemed to be carved from one single block of shimmering crystal. This was the Imperial Hall, home to the rulers of the Galactic Empire. Inside, the ceiling stretched so far up that flying creatures nested among the rafters. The hall itself was crowded. Hundreds of alien leaders stood in groups, speaking in 100 different tongues. The arrival of the humans caused an immediate ripple. Conversations stopped. Dozens of alien eyes turned to watch. Some faces showed open curiosity. Others showed cold suspicion. A tall insectoid diplomat leaned toward a scaled reptilian leader. Are those the primitives? The reptilian's golden eyes narrowed. Primitives do not walk into the throne hall without fear. The humans, meanwhile, were busy looking at a large fountain in the center of the room. The water glowed faintly, shifting colors in time with some hidden rhythm. Kind of like that lava lamp I had as a kid, Raj muttered. From the far end of the hall, a deep tone sounded. The crowd parted, revealing a raised platform where the Emperor sat. The same golden-skinned figure who had laughed at them before now wore ceremonial armor, each plate engraved with scenes of great battles. Her eyes glowed even brighter in the dim hall. "You have arrived," the translator said for her. Sarah nodded. "Yes, and thanks for the ride. Impressive place you've got here." The Emperor tilted her head, clearly unused to such casual speech. "Few outsiders have ever stood here. You arrive in the middle of war unharmed? I am curious." Mason shrugged. "We're just here by accident." The Emperor's gaze sharpened. "Accidents do not pass through my defense grid." The humans stayed silent. In truth, they had no idea how their tiny freighter had jumped through a secure war zone without being torn apart. They only knew that every alien in the room was now wondering the same thing. What made these humans so different? The Emperor smiled slowly. "You will be my guests. The Empire will study you." Sarah crossed her arms. "Study us? That sounds uncomfortable." The Emperor's smile deepened. "Then surprise me, human." Around them, alien leaders whispered urgently to one another. Some saw opportunity, new allies, perhaps. Others saw a threat. The humans, still calm and unfazed, had just stepped into the very heart of galactic politics. They didn't know it yet. But this invitation was the start of something much larger, something the Empire itself might not survive. The humans were summoned to the Grand Chamber the next morning. The guards didn't knock. The heavy crystal doors to their guest room slid open, and 2 towering soldiers stepped in, their armor glowing faintly with blue lines. Without a word, they gestured for the humans to follow. Sarah stretched, yawned, and pulled on her jacket. "Guess it's time for the main event." Mason looked up from the alien breakfast. He was trying to eat some purple bread in a bowl of glowing green liquid. "Let's hope they have chairs." Raj and Elena grabbed their bags, each quietly slipping in a few gadgets they'd been tinkering. With overnight, Kip's portable speaker hummed to life. "Warning: meeting with powerful alien rulers may result in imprisonment, dissection, or public execution. Statistically speaking, we should have stayed in bed." "No, Sarah?" muttered, stepping into the hall. The walk to the Grand Chamber was like walking through the inside of a living starship. Hallways shimmered with flowing energy under transparent floors, and alien servants moved aside quickly as the humans passed. Some stared openly, others avoided eye contact. When the massive doors to the chamber opened, the sound hit them first to low, constant murmur of voices. The room was enormous, round, and ringed with tiers of seating that climbed toward a domed ceiling. Every seat was filled with alien representatives, each wearing the colors and symbols of their homeworld. Some species had shimmering scales, others glowing feathers. Some were like living shadows with eyes that floated in the dark. In the center, on a circular platform, stood the Emperor. She was flanked by guards and surrounded by hovering drones that recorded everything. The light above her seemed to bend, making her golden skin shine even brighter. When the humans entered, the noise in the chamber shifted. Conversation stopped. 1,000 alien eyes turned to watch the newcomers. The Emperor raised a hand. The unknown species is present. The council will now ask its questions. A tall, thin alien with translucent skin stepped forward from the front row. Its voice was like the hum of glass when tapped. It came here through a restricted defense grid. Explain how your technology bypassed our scanners. Sarah met its gaze. It didn't. Our navigation computer glitched. We didn't even know where we were going. The alien's head tilted in disbelief. No ship has ever entered the capital zone by accident. Well, we just did. From the other side of the chamber, a bulky, armored alien spoke next. Its translator gave a deep, booming voice. Are you a warrior species? Raj glanced at Sarah, then answered, Not exactly. But we defend ourselves when we have to. The alien narrowed its eyes. Against who? Raj smiled faintly. Anyone who tries to hurt us. There was a ripple of quiet among the crowd. To some aliens, that answer was a warning. Another representative, shaped like a six-legged insect with gem-like eyes, clicked rapidly before its translator spoke. Your homeworld, what kind of world is it? Lena leaned on the railing of the platform. Pretty normal. It's oceans, forests, deserts. Weather can be dangerous sometimes. Lots of predators. Big ones. The insectoid leaned closer. And you? Survived there? Without terraforming? Alina nodded. Of course. The insectoid leaned back, its antennae twitching. Interesting. More questions followed about human technology, culture, history. The humans answered simply, sometimes. With humor, never with fear. They spoke about building cities on frozen moons, crossing deserts without air, diving into deep oceans just for exploration. To the aliens, these stories sounded less like casual conversation and more like tales of madness. At one point, an elderly alien scholar stood and addressed the Emperor directly. Your Majesty, this species is reckless. Their survival instincts are unnatural. I recommend we contain them before they spread. That caused a stir in the chamber. Some agreed loudly. Others protested, saying the humans might be valuable allies. The Emperor watched the debate without speaking. Finally, she raised her hand, and the hall fell silent. Words are not enough. We will see what they can do. Sarah frowned. What we can do? What does that mean? The Emperor's golden eyes locked on her. A trial. A test to measure your abilities. If you pass, you may be considered for entry into the Empire. If you fail, she let the words hang in the air. Mason crossed his arms. Let me guess, failure isn't a good thing. The Emperor smiled faintly. It means your species is irrelevant. The humans exchanged glances. None of them liked being tested, but none of them wanted to back down either. Sarah finally nodded. Fine, we'll take your test. There was a low collective murmur among the alien delegates. The Emperor gestured to her guards. Prepare. The trial world. The humans were led away as the chamber erupted in noise, arguments, predictions, and warnings. Many alien leaders had already decided that this strange new species would either prove itself too dangerous to be controlled, or too stubborn to survive. In the quiet of the corridor, Raj looked at Sarah. We don't even know what the test is. Sarah smiled faintly. Then I guess we'll find out the hard way. Somewhere deep in the Empire, preparations were already being made. And for the first time since they'd arrived, the humans began to feel the faintest spark of curiosity about what they'd just agreed to. They didn't know it yet. But the trial world wasn't a test for most species. It was a death sentence. The humans woke up to find themselves somewhere else. One moment, they had been in the Emperor's palace, sleeping in their assigned quarters. The next, they were standing in a wide clearing under a blood-red sky. The air was heavy and hot, filled with the distant sound of strange animals. Around them stretched a dense jungle, its trees twisted and dark, their leaves glowing faintly in the shadows. A voice crackled from a floating drone above their heads. It spoke in the Emperor's language first, then in translated words. Our on-trial world, survive until we return. Observation begins now. The drone zipped away, leaving them alone. Mason squinted at the thick undergrowth. So this is their test? Just survive? Raj adjusted his backpack. They say it like it's easy. I don't think they put us somewhere friendly. Something roared in the distance. The sound was deep, wet, and close enough to make the ground tremble. Sarah scanned the tree line. We need a camp. Somewhere defensible. Alina was already looking for dry wood. We'll need fire too. If this place is anything like the death worlds back home, fire might be the only thing that keeps predators away. Within minutes, the humans had a plan. Mason climbed a low ridge to get a view. Sarah and Raj cleared brush to make space for her. A shelter. Alina found stones and began shaping a fire pit. High above, hidden in the clouds, alien observation drones tracked every movement. In a warship's control room, several alien commanders watched the humans on wide screens. They are calm. One said in disbelief. Every other species dropped here in the last century ran for cover or called for rescue within the first hour. Another replied, these must just start building. By nightfall, the humans had a working camp. A fire burned bright in the center, smoke rising into the dark sky. They had sharpened wooden spears from fallen branches and hung them on a rack for quick use. Mason had set up a perimeter of noise traps, bits of metal that would clatter if disturbed. The first predator came just after sunset. It looked like a massive six-legged panther with jaws that split into 4 parts. Its eyes glowed green in the firelight as it prowled closer. Raj picked up a spear without hesitation. Sarah stepped forward, her eyes fixed on the creature. The panther hissed, muscles tense. Then, with a speed almost too fast to see, it leaped. Sarah sidestepped, driving her spear into its side. Mason was already there with another strike. Alina threw a burning branch, and the predator howled before vanishing into the jungle. The humans returned to the fire as if nothing unusual had happened. From their hidden observation posts, the aliens watched in silence. They killed a night stalker. One officer whispered, that is impossible. It's not impossible. The Emperor's voice said through the comes, just human. Over the next 2 days, the humans treated the trial world like a camping trip. They built stronger shelters, found edible plants, and even discovered a stream full of strange, brightly colored fish. Lena managed to smoke and preserve the meat, while Mason crafted a crude but functional bow from jungle vines and hardwood. The jungle, however, did not stop testing them. Massive insects swarmed their camp one afternoon, forcing them to light ringed fires to keep the bugs back. A reptilian beast the size of a bus charged through on the 3rd morning, smashing trees in its path. The humans worked together like a machine, Raj distracting the creature while Sarah and Mason drove it toward a pit they had dug. It fell in, thrashing, before slumping still. They ate well that night. By the 5th day, the aliens observing them were no longer asking if the humans would survive. They were asking how much longer the trial world itself could keep up with them. Then came the storm. The sky turned black without warning, lightning crackling in branching webs across the horizon. The wind roared like a living thing, ripping trees from the ground. The humans moved fast, securing their shelter and salvaging supplies. Before the rain came, the rain was unlike anything on Earth's thick, oily drops that steamed where they hit the fire. Visibility dropped to nothing, but the humans stayed together, moving toward a rocky cave Mason had spotted earlier in the day. Inside, they found signs of another predator, bones, shredded hides, the stink of musk. But the storm outside was worse, so they fortified the entrance with rocks and burning branches. When the wind finally died hours later, the humans emerged into a transformed jungle. Trees lay shattered, the ground was littered with debris, the air was heavy with the smell of wet earth. Above them, the drones returned. One lowered itself until it hovered at eye level with Sarah. Trial concluded. Follow. The humans packed their things without hurry. Mason tossed his spear to Raj. Keep it. Might be useful later. They followed the drone to a clearing, where a shimmering column of golden light waited. Stepping into it, they felt the world dissolve again. Colors swirling before reforming into the Emperor's palace. The Emperor was waiting, flanked by her guards. Her gaze swept over the humans slowly. You survived. Sarah raised an eyebrow. Was there any doubt? The Emperor's lips curved into the faintest smile. There was. Not anymore. Around them, alien envoys murmured in disbelief. The trial world was meant to break the will of any newcomer, to prove they were unfit for the dangers of the galaxy. The humans had not only survived, they had adapted, fought, and even thrived. Somewhere in the crowd, an alien commander whispered, "To another, if they can survive that, what can't they survive?" The Emperor turned away, hiding her expression. She had invited them here to see if they were worth noticing. Now she knew. The problem was, so did everyone else. It had been 3 days since the trial world. The humans were back in the Imperial capital, living in guest quarters high in one of the crystal towers. They were told the Emperor was considering her decision about humanity's place in the Empire. For the crew of the Blue Star, it was almost relaxing, if you ignored the constant alien guards outside their door, and the fact that half the galaxy now seemed to be talking about them. Mason spent the morning staring out the window. At the endless alien city, Raj and Alina kept tinkering with bits of scavenged tech. Sarah played cards with Kip, who cheated shamelessly despite being a computer. The piece ended when the lights in the room flickered. For a second, everything went dark. Then the power came back, but the city outside was different. Towers that had been glowing moments ago were now black, and the orbital rings above had gone still. The door burst open, and an alien guard strode in. Armor flashing with warning lights. "Stay inside," the translator on his chest said. "Capital's under attack." Sarah stood. "Attack? From who?" The guard didn't answer, but another voice came through the hall speakers. It was sharp, urgent, and in the Emperor's language. Kip translated it instantly. "Attention. Central communication grid compromised. Fleet deployment disrupted. Security lockdown in effect." Raj frowned. "That's bad. If the grid's down, every ship in the Empire is flying blind." A deep boom shook the building, followed by the distant sound of alarms. Mason looked at Sarah. "I'm guessing this isn't the part where we stay in our room." It's a good guess. Sarah's smile was thin. "No. This is the part where we help." Guards tried to block them, but humans had a way of slipping past rules when they wanted to. Within minutes, the crew was moving through the capital's narrow side corridors, heading toward the massive spire at the city's center, the hub of the communication grid. When they got there, the plaza outside was in chaos. Alien technicians shouted orders, their hands flying over glowing control panels. Sparks flew from a smashed relay tower. Several officers argued in front of a giant holographic map that showed parts of the Empire, going dark one after another. "What happened?" Sarah asked a technician. He barely looked at her. "Hackers, unknown origin. They're inside the system. We can't purge them." Raj's eyes narrowed. "Show me the terminal." The alien hesitated. "You are not cleared." Alina stepped forward. "He can fix it." That got their attention. Within minutes, Raj was at the terminal, his fingers flying over alien controls as if they were an old Earth keyboard. Kip interfaced with the system, muttering sarcastic comments as he traced the intrusion. "These hackers aren't just shutting things down," Raj said. "They're redirecting fleets, giving false orders. It's brilliant, honestly." Mason leaned over his shoulder. "Can you stop them?" Raj grinned. "With a little human creativity?" "Oh yeah, are the aliens watching?" Didn't understand half of what Raj was doing. Instead of following their standard security protocols, started breaking rules, routing power in ways their systems weren't designed for, using crude code loops that would be considered primitive by their standards. But primitive didn't mean weak. Slowly, sections of the map began lighting up again. Fleet signals returned. The alien officers exchanged stunned glances, but then Kip's voice cut through. Bad news. They know we're here, and they're sending a response." "Response?" Sarah asked. The answer came in the form of a sharp, metallic whine. A small, insect-like drone darted into the plaza, weapons glowing. Mason reacted first. Grabbing a loose piece of metal from the repair pile and hurling it like a spear, The drone spun out of control and smashed into the ground. Two more zipped in from above. Alina yanked a glowing cable from the nearest console and whipped it upward, striking one drone out of the air in a shower of sparks. The third drone swooped toward Raj, but Sarah stepped in front of him, catching it mid-lunge and slamming it into the ground with a boot. Raj didn't look up. Almost there. Just need one more. The plaza lights blazed to full power. On the holographic map, the last dark sectors lit up. Fleet communications were restored. The Empire's war machine was back online. The alien technicians erupted in relieved chatter, but the human crew barely noticed. Raj leaned back from the terminal, breathing hard. Dunn, an alien officer, his crest feathers trembling, stared at them. "You've saved the capital. The Emperor must be told." Sarah shook her head. "Tell her later. Right now, find whoever did this because they're not done yet." Above, in the shadow of the orbital rings, a rival faction's warship slipped quietly out of the system. Inside, a shadowy figure watched the humans' faces on a screen. They fixed it, subordinate hissed. The figure's voice was cold. "Then we know the truth. They are dangerous. And now we have to remove them before the Emperor realizes it too." Back in the capital, Sarah looked out over the glowing city as power returned. Somewhere deep in her gut, she knew this was only the beginning and that someone, somewhere, had just decided the humans wouldn't be leaving the Empire alive. The Emperor's summons came at sunrise. A messenger in silver armor arrived at the humans' quarters and spoke in a voice that carried no emotion. "The Emperor will see you now." Sarah and her crew followed him through endless corridors. Of shining crystal and soft light, they were led into a grand hall where the air was heavy with the scent of alien flowers. The Emperor sat on her throne, her eyes sharp, her crown glowing faintly in the light. "You have done the Empire a service," she said. "But danger grows. A faction inside my borders seeks chaos. I believe they will strike again soon. I believe they will strike you." Mason frowned. "Why us?" "Because you embarrassed them," the Emperor said simply. "And because they fear what you might become to me." There was no trial, no ceremony. Orders were given. The humans were to be escorted to a secure fortress world in the inner. Systems safe from attack until the threat was removed. It sounded reasonable. Raj whispered to Sarah as they walked back toward the landing bay. "Ever get the feeling you're being moved somewhere on purpose?" Sarah's jaw tightened. "Yeah. Like a piece on a chessboard." The journey began on the Imperial Transport Varish. It was a massive vessel, crewed entirely by alien soldiers. The humans were given private quarters, food, even entertainment. Yet there was an undercurrent, quiet unease in the way the crew looked at them. On the second day, Mason noticed something odd. "No patrol drones outside our door anymore," he said. Alina checked the ship's internal network with Kip's help. Security logs have gaps. Whole sections of the ship are unmonitored right now. That night, the ship dropped out of faster-than-light travel unexpectedly. The captain claimed it was for navigation adjustments. But Sarah saw the truth when she glanced at the external displays. A dead system. No inhabited worlds, no trade routes. "Why would a transport to the inner world stop here?" she whispered. The answer came in the form of a sudden, violent shudder. The lights dimmed. The distant thump of something docking echoed through the hull. Kip, Sarah, said, "Tell me that's just routine maintenance." The AI's voice was flat. "If routine maintenance involves a stealth boarding craft, then sure." Within minutes, the sound of boots on metal floors filled the corridor outside. The intruders weren't Imperial soldiers. Their armor was black, their weapons sleek, their movements fast and precise. Sarah didn't wait for orders. Move. The humans split into two pairs. Mason and Alina headed toward engineering. Raj and Sarah made for the ship's armory. They had to fight. They'd need more than their fists. The corridors became a maze of flashing lights and blaring alarms. Twice they had to duck into side passages as alien soldiers were cut down by the intruders' silent weapons. Mason reached the engineering bay first. The chief engineer lay slumped over a console. Mason pulled him aside and began locking down power relays. "If they want this ship, They're going to have to work for it. In the armory, Raj hacked the access panel while Sarah stood guard. Hurry, she urged. Raj smirked. You keep saying that, like it makes me faster. The panel clicked open. Sarah grabbed a pair of pulse carbines and tossed one to Raj. The weight felt familiar in her hands. She'd hoped they wouldn't need weapons in the Empire. But hope wasn't going to save them now. The intruders hit them before they could regroup. A sharp burst of plasma lit the corridor. Sarah dropped to one knee, firing back. Raj took cover. Behind a bulkhead, his shots precise. 2 attackers went down. A third tried to flank, but Mason appeared from the opposite hall. Swinging a metal pipe into the soldier's helmet, Alina ran in behind him, carrying a small device. They're cutting into the engine controls. It can overload the boarding. But, Mason asked. It'll blow half the docking ring with it, Alina said. Do it, Sarah said. They fell back toward the boarding tube. The intruders pressed them hard, their weapons leaving scorched holes in the walls. Alina slammed the device into the boarding controls and began the overload sequence. A deep hum filled the air. The intruders realized too late what was happening. The boarding tube glowed white-hot, then exploded outward in a flash of fire and shrapnel. The humans were thrown to the floor by the shockwave. When they looked up, the docking area was gone, just open space and drifting debris where the attackers' craft had been. The Virash's alarms went silent, replaced by the crackle of the captain's voice over the intercom. Boarding party. Destroyed, damage, contained, humans. Report to the bridge. When they arrived, the captain's face was pale. This was not random. They came for you. And they were not pirates. They were Imperial. Sarah met his gaze. Then someone inside your empire wants us gone. And they're willing to kill a lot of people to make that happen. Far away, on a hidden world, the shadowy figure from before listened to a report. They survived again, the messenger said. The figure's voice was cold and certain. Then the next move must be bigger. No more small games. We'll end them in the open, before the Emperor can protect them. On the Varish, Sarah stared, out at the stars. She had the sinking feeling they hadn't escaped a trap. They were still inside it. The humans reached the Imperial capital 2 days later. The Varish limped into dock, its hull scarred from the attack. Imperial workers swarmed over the ship, repairing damage, sealing breaches. Sarah's crew was escorted straight to the Emperor's private war room. The chamber was dark except for a large holographic map floating above the center table. Stars glowed in red, green, and gold. Many of the red ones were clustered along the Empire's outer borders. The Emperor looked older than when they had last seen her, though only a few days had passed. The attack on your transport was not an isolated act, she said. We have confirmed it. One of my own High Lords ordered it. Why? Mason asked. Because they believe humans should not be here, the Emperor said quietly. Believe your kind is unpredictable, dangerous. Raj let out a dry laugh. They're not wrong. Her eyes narrowed. Perhaps. But danger is sometimes exactly what is needed. We are at the edge of civil war. Your arrival has accelerated events. The map shifted. Red markers flared brightly, spreading toward the green. They are moving fleets, preparing to strike openly. So stop them, Sarah said. It's not so simple, the Emperor replied. If I strike first, many worlds will side with them. If I wait, they will grow stronger. She paused, her gaze locking on Sarah. But your actions could give me the excuse I need. The trigger that makes them reveal themselves fully. Mason folded his arms. You want us to bait them into open war? The Emperor said nothing. That was answer enough. Within hours, the humans were aboard a small, fast warship called the Iron Gale. Its mission was simple on paper. Travel to a contested system, inspect an Imperial military depot, and make sure the right people noticed. In truth, it was a flag in the enemy's face. The journey was tense. Lena monitored incoming transmissions, while Raj worked on the ship's gun controls. Mason paced. Sarah sat in the captain's chair, eyes on the endless dark ahead. They arrived. In the contested system without incident, at first, The depot orbited a frozen moon, its hangars full of ships marked with Imperial crests. But even from a distance, Sarah could see something was wrong. "Kip," she said to the AI, "scan those ships." A moment later, the AI replied, "Half of them are powered down. No crew detected. The others. It's not Imperial at all. Wrong drive signatures. Wrong transponder codes." "It's a trap," Mason said flatly. The trap sprang a heartbeat later. Dozens of enemy warships lit up on the sensors, engines flaring to life. They had been hiding among the frozen asteroids, waiting. The Iron Gale's engines roared as Sarah turned the ship hard to starboard. Plasma bolts streaked past them, lighting the dark. "They're jamming communications," Alina shouted. "We can't call the Emperor." Raj was already firing. The ship's cannons spat blue fire, tearing into an enemy frigate. It exploded in a burst of light and debris, but for every ship they hit, 3 more closed in. "They're trying to capture us," Kip reported. "Boarding craft launching." Sarah's voice was cold. "Not today." She dove the Iron Gale between 2 massive asteroid fragments. Enemy ships followed, their guns carving glowing scars into the rock. Mason released a cluster of mines. Asteroids erupted behind them, crushing 2 of the pursuers instantly. But more kept coming. One boarding craft managed to latch onto the hull.
Ow!
The clang of metal on metal echoed through the ship. "Raj, hold them off." Sarah barked. Raj grinned, already pulling his rifle from the wall. With pleasure, the corridors filled with the sounds of close combat pulse fire, shouting, the thud of boots. The humans fought with precision and fury, driving the boarders back step by step. Mason used the engineering controls to vent atmosphere from the invaded section, sucking half the attackers into space. In the cockpit, Alina worked to break the comms jam. Almost there. Almost a green light flared on her screen. "We're through." "Kip, send everything to the Emperor," Sarah ordered. "Show her who fired first." The AI's voice was calm. "Transmitting now." The moment the signal left the ship, enemy fire intensified. The Iron Gale's shields dropped to critical. Warning lights bathed the cockpit in red. "They're going to destroy us?" Mason warned. Sarah smiled grimly. "Not before they've doomed themselves." Then, through the chaos, a ripple of light appeared, ahead dozens of Imperial ships, dropping out of faster-than-light travel. The Emperor's fleet had arrived. The space around them erupted into war. Beams and plasma bolts tore through the dark. Enemy ships tried to scatter, but the Imperial fleet was faster, angrier, and far larger. The Iron Gale limped back toward friendly lines. Sarah watched the battle unfold on the view screen. The trap had failed and the enemy had just shown their hand to the whole empire. Far away in a hidden fortress, the shadowy figure slammed a fist against the table. "They've forced us into the open," the voice growled, "and we meet them in the only place they can be broken, at the heart of the empire itself." And somewhere deep inside, Sarah knew this was only the beginning. The small fights were over. The next one would decide everything. The Imperial capital was in chaos. War horns echoed across the city's skyports, and giant troop carriers roared upward into the clouds. From the palace walls, Sarah could see the glow of battles in orbit, flashes like silent lightning against the black. The Emperor stood beside her, hands clasped behind her back. "They're coming straight for the capital. The High Lords have thrown their full fleet at us." "How bad?" Mason asked. The Emperor's voice was calm, but her eyes were hard. "Bad enough that if we lose here, the Empire falls." She turned to Sarah. "And without the Empire, your people will be hunted to extinction." Sarah looked toward the hangar, where the Varish had been repaired. "Then we don't lose." The plan was insane. That was the point. While the Emperor's main fleet fought in high orbit, the humans would take the Varish and slip past the enemy's front lines. Their target, the enemy flagship, Blood Sovereign, where the traitor High Lord commanded the attack, destroy that ship and the rest of the fleet might break. They launched in silence. The Varish running dark, no lights, no energy spikes, just drifting like a piece of space junk. Enemy ships passed dangerously close, but none stopped them. Finally, the flagship came into view. It was a monster of a vessel, bristling with gun batteries and glowing shield arrays. Even from this distance, its hull seemed to hum with power. Shield. Grid is layered, Kip said quietly. Standard weapons will do nothing. Good thing we brought something that's not standard, Raj replied, patting the control for their once stolen Imperial super torpedo. The problem was getting close enough to fire it. The Varish was fast, but the flagship was surrounded by an escort wall of destroyers. One wrong move, and they'd be vapor. Sarah pushed the throttle forward. Hold on. They shot straight at the destroyer line. Enemy sensors lit up. Warnings screamed in the cockpit. Alina jammed incoming targeting locks. Mason rerouted every ounce of engine power to the forward shields. And Raj fired bursts at anything that moved. Bolts of plasma slammed into the shields, each hit like a hammer. The Varish shook, groaning, as if the metal itself felt fear. 200 meters to torpedo range, Kip reported. A destroyer turned directly into their path. Guns blazing. Not today, Sarah muttered, rolling the ship hard. They skimmed so close to the destroyer's hull, they could see maintenance hatches racing past the viewports. 100 meters, Kip said. Fire, Sarah barked. The super torpedo launched, streaking through the dark like a comet. It hit the flagship's shield grid with a burst so bright the crew had to shield their eyes. The shields didn't just fail, they collapsed in a ripple, taking out power to half the ship. Direct hit, Rod shouted, but the flagship didn't die quietly. Its guns spun toward them, and a blast of raw energy tore past the Varish. Close. Enough to leave the hull glowing. Engines failing, Mason yelled. Sarah made a choice. Ram them. No one argued. The Varish roared forward, weaving between the escort ships, smashing through point defense fire. The enemy flagship loomed larger and larger until it filled the entire VIAWPOR. At the last second, Sarah pulled the ship into a spin, lining up with a massive wound in the flagship's armor where the torpedo had struck. The Varish dove inside. Interior was a nightmare of sparks, fire, and venting atmosphere. Enemy crews scattered as the human ship smashed into the main reactor chamber. Sarah's team leapt from their seats, rifles ready. They fought through narrow corridors, each step toward the bridge bought with blood and smoke. Raj took down 2 guards with a burst of fire. Alina hacked a sealed door in under 30 seconds. Mason planted explosives along the reactor's coolant lines. Finally, they reached the bridge. The High Lord stood at the center, his armor gleaming. Black eyes full of cold hatred. You don't belong in my galaxy, he spat. Sarah raised her rifle. Funny, I was about to say the same to you. The fight was brutal. The High Lord moved with inhuman speed, his energy blade carving the air. But humans had fought worse, and they fought dirty. Mason distracted him with a blinding flash charge, and Sarah drove her blade into the joint of his armor. Raj finished it with a shot to the chest. As the High Lord fell, alarms screamed. The explosives Mason had set were cooking the reactor. Time to go. Sarah shouted. They raced back to the Varish, engines barely holding together. Behind them, the flagship's core went critical. A sun seemed to bloom in the darkness, swallowing the enemy's command ship in a storm of fire and debris. The enemy fleet broke instantly. Without their leader, they scattered, retreating into the void. Hours later, the Emperor stood before her people, the humans at her side. Today the Empire stands because of them, she said, her voice carrying across every channel in the galaxy. Let it be known humans are not to be feared. They are to be respected. Sarah didn't care about speeches. She just looked at her crew, battered but alive. Next time, Raj said with a grin, can we have a mission that doesn't involve almost dying? Sarah smirked. Where's the fun in that? Far above the capital, the wreckage of the blood. Sovereign drifted silently. A warning to anyone who thought the humans would ever back down. For the galaxy, it was the end of a war. For humanity, it was just another Tuesday.